My name is Jenny, welcome. So this is going to be a restore practice, and this is one of my all-time favorite styles of practicing and of teaching, because it just gives us an opportunity to slow down, to settle the body, and to give the mind an opportunity to settle. And this it seems simple, you know, I've heard people call restore classes, you know, community napping, or, you know, napping yoga. But it can be very challenging, especially if, you know, we're used to the hustle and bustle, or we're the type where we try to keep busy so that we don't have to deal with the things that are going on in our internal environment. So it can be very challenging to slow things down and to allow that space and time to feel and move and grow. And I got into a really good conversation with a friend this weekend about vulnerability and the importance of that. And we were talking about in the context of building relationships, in the context of our friendship, and that, you know, it was a new group of friends that I've been hanging out with for, you know, just this last little bit, and we clicked so quick, and because of that, or maybe, you know, because we were able to be vulnerable, it's, you know, it's not sure which came first, the vulnerability or the friendship, but because we are able to be vulnerable with each other, we are able to become better friends. And so we were talking about the importance of that in life, you know, and allowing our humanness to show. For some reason, society teaches us to hide the parts of us that are human, to hide our emotions, to hide, you know, the parts that we're ashamed of. And part of being vulnerable is allowing ourselves to share that with others. And when you allow that, you know, people to see that side of you, it helps you to grow deeper connections. And then it's a really cool feeling when you meet someone. It's like, wow, you know me, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and you still want to hang out, you still want to be around me. And that is true friendship. That is the basis of any solid relationship. So I'm going to be continuing to bring us back to this idea of vulnerability. Some of the poses that we get into may feel a little vulnerable. So just allow yourself to do that. Take this time on your mat to practice being vulnerable, and then maybe it might come a little easier when you step off your mat. So that's the theme we're going to be working with today. As far as props go, so restorative yoga, we do tend to hold the poses a little bit longer. And we like to utilize props to make sure that we're doing that very safely. So some of my favorite props, I'll give suggestions also if you don't have any of the items that I list. So bolster, this is my all-time favorite prop. You can also substitute this, you know, with a cushion, pillows, a stack of pillows, you know, couch cushions. You can also grab an extra large blanket and roll it up, that sort of thing. So I like to have one of those. A block or two, or something similar to this shape, size. This can just help bring the ground closer, help bring a little support in some of the poses. I've got a couple of different sizes of blankets here, so maybe grabbing a couple of those. Again, they can be used as cushions, as, you know, fillers, or to wrap up in Shavasana. And then tonight, a prop that we don't always use in this restorative practice, but tonight we will, is a yoga strap, or you know, something. You could use a belt, a scarf, a hand towel, a necktie, anything that's going to give you, you know, anywhere from a foot plus length. You know, we're going to be doing some, so, you know, things kind of like that. So, you know, just where it can give you maybe a little more extension for your reach. So take a moment to gather, you know, whatever items you want for your props, and as we move through the practice, I'll be giving suggestions of how to use the props. But don't feel like if you don't have any props, or if you know, can't grab anything right now, that's okay. I'll definitely give lots of options to not use props. So yes, let's jump into it. So let's start seated. So find a comfortable seat. This is one reason that I love the bolster, is that it helps give a little lift. So I can tilt my pelvis forward, and it helps me sit a little bit taller. This helps especially if you have a tighter low back or tight hamstrings. And again, without a bolster, you could sit on a stack of pillows, you could sit on a block, you could sit on, you know, cushions, blanket, anything like that. So when you get settled into your seated position, whatever that is for you, your legs could be crossed, they could extend, you could bend the knees and draw them in towards the chest. Whatever you'd like, however you'd like to sit. But start to pay attention to the connection to your sits bones. Really root down to the sits bones and try to get them both connected to the earth so that you have a nice square pelvis, a nice solid base to build from. And then from there, work to lengthen up through the crown of the head, stacking each vertebra so that you're sitting tall and with intention, but not rigid. We're not stiff. We're not, drawing the shoulders up. We're not anything like that. Relax in the shoulders. Relax in the face. Hands can, rest on the knees, on the thighs, in the lap, alongside the body, whatever feels good here. But find this solid seat with integrity. So we're looking to lengthen up through the crown of the head. So imagine there's a rod connecting all the way down through the earth, all the way up through the sky, and through your spinal cord. So we're sitting up nice and tall. You're welcome to close the eyes or just simply soften the gaze. Allow maybe a nice sigh out of the mouth. The sigh can sometimes get a bad rap. It's sometimes used maybe passive aggressively. But a sigh can also be a sign to the body to just relax and let go, to settle. If you would like to put on some calming music, that can be a beautiful addition to your yoga practice. So as we sit, lengthening up through the crown of the head, just allow this time to kind of put the body at ease and to let the mind start to settle into your present moment. And that might be a challenge, especially if the mind is racing, if you've had a really busy Monday, if you have a lot going on in the mind, sometimes it can feel very chaotic in there. So just try your best to allow the mind to settle. And if it helps, bring some focus to your breath. And let that be your main focal point. Inhale, and the exhale. Maybe even noticing that natural, subtle pause at the top of each inhale before the exhale begins, and at the bottom of each exhale before the next inhale comes. The breath, not to state the obvious, but the breath is one of the most present things that we have. When we focus on the breath, it gets us into our body, which helps to get us into our present moment. So with the eyes closed, just breathe. And notice any effects of the breath. Notice in bringing attention to the breath if you've changed it in any way. And the breath is such a powerful tool that we can utilize and to help us bring presence, to help us bring peace of mind. So start to breathe with a little more intention. Just as we are sitting with intention, lengthening up through the crown of the head and softening in the face and shoulders, we're breathing with the intention of lengthening each inhale, expanding each exhale, and letting our focus be on the breath. Let each breath be the most important thing that is happening in that moment. And be aware of what comes up for you. This is where that theme, that idea of vulnerability can really come into play, is the thoughts that come, the thoughts that arise through our practice. So for some of us, even just taking this time to settle the body and letting the mind wander, or letting the mind, starting to pay attention to the mind, that is an act of vulnerability. If you would like to practice Ujjayi breathing, you're welcome to do that, finding an activation of those muscles in the back of the throat, the muscles that fire up when you're fogging up a window or a mirror, so that kind of sound. It just brings a beautiful audible quality to the breath, another way to connect to it, and another tool to help bring us to our present moment. Fantastic work. Now continue to connect to the breath as we start to bring some movement into the body. So we're just going to start from the top and work our way down. So inhaling to lengthen up through the crown of the head. On an exhale, just nice and slow, start to drop the right ear over towards the right shoulder. Now I am mirroring you, so just so you know. Opening up through the side of the neck. Hands can stay where they are, or they could come in for some exploration, maybe extending that left arm out. Fingertips could point towards the ground or flex back. You could even extend the arm out to the side, or maybe play with the spacing or play with the position of that arm in space, all with the intention of just bringing a little more sensation, a little more awareness to this opening in the left side of the neck. And even though we've got the head turned over, we're still lengthening up through the crown of the head. So still sitting with that integrity. Awesome work. If the arm is raised, go ahead and release it down. And then, still having the head tilted, we're just going to start to take the gaze towards the ground, or turning the chin in towards the shoulder. So the slight turn is going to start to bring a little more stretch in the back side of the left neck, if that's a thing. The left back side of the neck. A lot of sensation here. And continue to lengthen out through the crown of the head, maybe even drawing the shoulder away from the ear. That would be your left shoulder away from the ear. Beautiful work. When you're ready, nice and slow, just start to drop the chin towards the chest and let the head swing towards center. And then just pause there. Let it hang heavy. But don't allow yourself to start to hunch over. We still want that integrity in the spine, that nice length. And then we've just got the bend in the neck with the chin coming towards the chest, lengthening through the back side of the neck. Maybe even feeling this into the upper shoulders. Continue to connect to the breath. Continue to observe what comes up for you. And the observation is the important part there. Almost like a scientist. Simply acknowledge, witness, hold space for what comes up for you. But from a distance, like you're examining it in an experiment. Get curious about it, but don't attach to it. Don't allow whatever to rise up, take over. Just allow yourself to be with it. Beautiful work. On your next inhale, we'll start to draw the head back up towards neutral. Maybe again, re-establishing that nice tall lengthening through the spine. And then on an exhale, we'll drop the left ear towards the left shoulder, opening up through the right side of the neck. So just taking it to the other side. Then we're letting that head hang heavy, but we're still sitting up nice and tall, connecting down to the sits bones. You could stay here or maybe play with extending out that right arm. It could point at a diagonal or fingers flexing back. You could play with the placement of that arm, maybe bringing it forward and back in space. Anything that would feel good here, just to explore that opening in the right side of the neck. Continuing to breathe. Continuing to observe. And as you feel ready, if the arm is extended, go ahead and release it down. Keeping the head, tilted over, we're just going to start to bring the chin or the gaze down towards the ground. So turning the chin in towards the shoulder, gaze down, and that again just takes it from directly on the side a little bit into the back. So still working that stretch through the right side of the neck, but just switching it up a little, lengthening out through the crown of the head, softening in the shoulders, drawing that right shoulder away from the ear. Fantastic work. Just a couple more rounds of breath on this side. And as you feel ready, slowly, once again, dropping the chin down towards the chest, letting the head drop towards center. Just releasing here. And then we'll continue with a little bit of neck stretching. We'll just do some neck rolls here. So if you'd like, you can just take the head side to side, just rolling over, pausing when the ear is hovering over the right shoulder, and circling back around, pausing when the head is hovering over the left shoulder. So you can do these half neck rolls. If you want, you could bring in a full neck roll, but really pay attention to the back of the neck. A little bit of crunchies is okay as we work out, snap, crackle, pops here. But what we want to do is really protect those delicate bones in the neck, so we don't want to just throw the head back. So you can take full neck rolls, but as the head comes up, think about more lengthening through the chin, extending through the throat, than throwing the head back. So again, you can take half neck rolls or full neck rolls. Feel free to pause at any point to maybe bring a finger or two in to give a little massage if you want to breathe into a particular sticky area. And if you're taking full neck rolls, go ahead and reverse the direction if you haven't already. Connecting to the breath. Beautiful work. When you're ready, just start to circle the head back up towards neutral and find that nice tall length in the spine. If you do need to shake out in the legs or readjust your seated position, feel free. We'll be here for just a little bit longer as we start to bring the work down into the shoulders. So releasing the arms down. On the inhale, send the arms out to the side. Start to raise them, push out all the way, raise them up towards the sky. On an exhale, bend the elbows into goalposts, spread out through the hands. Elbows are parallel to the shoulders. Inhale, draw the shoulder blades back, maybe even lift through the chest, but don't splail out through the ribs. Allow them to still kind of hug in. And then exhale, bring forearms and hands together, separating through the shoulder blades, and then tuck the chin in towards the chest. Again, we're not rounding out, we're just tucking, moving through the neck. Inhale, again, open up through the arms, spread out through the hands, shoulder blades draw together, heart opens. Exhale, arms come together, elbows are still lifted. Forearms, elbows meet as the chin tucks in, rounding out through the upper back. Let's just take one more like that. Inhaling to open up through the chest, spread out through the hands, jazz hands here, active fingers. Exhale, bring the arms forward as you tuck in through the chin. Awesome work. Inhale to come back up through center. Take a nice exhale here. Inhale, reach the arms up towards the sky. And exhale, release the hands down. And then they'll come back behind you. Now the hands can just energetically reach towards each other, or perhaps they interlace. So maybe, flip around real quick. Maybe as the hands come back behind you, they interlace, roll the shoulders back and down, and root the hands down. They can also just energetically reach, or this is where you could bring in your strap, filling in that gap there so that you have something to grab onto. So we're bringing this opening through the chest as we root down through the hands. Awesome work. And again, with this opening in the chest, it's tempting to kind of let the ribs splel open. We want support there so that we're not bringing in too much of a back bend and allowing the opening to come in through the chest instead of arching, if that makes sense. Awesome work. Just a few more rounds of breath here. As you feel ready, release the hands. On your next inhale, reach the arms back up towards the sky. On the exhale, we're going to release the right hand down towards the ground. Inhale, reaching up, and exhale to arch it over. So as you can see, I switched up my seated position into more of a hero's pose, so I'm on the knees. You could take that, you could sit and cross-legged, you'd have the arms extended, but whatever you're doing, have those sits bones nice and squared. Don't lift up through the cheek. So you have that solid base as you reach up and over, getting a nice side stretch here. You could release the head down if that would feel good. And then again, to continue to work the shoulders here, we're going to bring in some guitar hero action. So just starting to circle the arms around. I can't do arm circles like this without saying the quote, which I hope many of you get the reference. Just be awesome to each other. Or no, be excellent. That's what it is. Be excellent to each other. Awesome work. If you're taking those circles, reverse the direction. Going to bring that arm overhead where we started, bicep by the ear. Inhale, come back up through center. Both arms reach up towards the sky. And we'll take it to the other side. Just exhale to release the left hand down. Inhale to reach up through those right fingertips. And exhale, arch it over. Ooh, yeah, that feels good. Again, don't let the right sits bones lift. Getting a nice stretch through the side body, and then bringing in our most excellent pose. Little guitar hero. Circling through the arm. Reversing the direction. Fantastic work. Bringing the bicep by the ear once again, reaching out through the fingertips. Nice inhale to come back up through center. Both arms reach up towards the sky. And exhale, release both hands down. Awesome work. We'll come back and do some more shoulders. But for now, let's get out of a seated position. Go ahead and uncross through the legs if they're crossed. Come onto the sits bones. Maybe shake out through the legs if you need to, if the legs fell asleep there. Awesome work. And when you're ready, we're going to take it all the way down to the ground, but bring your strap, your tie, dish towel, again, anything that's just going to give you a little more extension in your reach, you know, something. So you're going to do movements similar to that, but on the back. So go ahead and make your way down towards the ground. Awesome work. And then as you feel ready, start to draw the right knee in towards the chest. You can grab onto the top or outside of the knee, and then just kind of use the hands to guide that leg around. Just kind of working the top of the femur into the hip socket. Just getting some movement there, maybe a little massage for the hip flexor, and preparing that hip to see some action. And then when you feel ready, grabbing your strap or whatever extension piece you've got going, placing part of it around, or about the center of it, around the ball of the foot right below the toes. And then we'll extend that right leg up towards the sky. So with the strap or whatever you've got here along the ball of the foot, it's going to help you to flex those toes back. We want it nice and active. It's okay if the knee is bent. Actually, you need to have a little softness in the knee, but you can bend the knee as much as you want. But we are rooting up through the heel so that we get that activation through the back of the leg. Ooh, say hello to your hamstring. And you can hold on to, you know, if you've got a shorter dish rag or something, you know, you can hold on closer up. If you've got a little more extension, you can bring the hands down, you know, however you want to hold your strap, but try not to tense up in it. Try not to, you know, bring too much tension into the hands. Just kind of keep it soft, keep it nice and gentle. Maybe little small circles. Maybe imagine you have a marker on your heel and you're making little spirals on the ceiling. And then if you'd like, maybe taking those circles a little bit larger. Awesome. Oh, one thing that I should have said, the left leg could stay extended, but you could also bend that knee and plant the foot on the ground. It's going to give you a little more stability and may not be as intense in the hips. So, sorry I didn't mention that when we first started into this, but that is always an option. When you feel ready, we'll start to, with the strap, open that right foot out towards the right. So taking that right leg over. And if you can, you know, just use the strap for support, just use that. The leg could come over onto a prop of sorts. It could, if you have the flexibility, then, you know, maybe the leg comes all the way to the ground in my dreams. But, you know, everybody's built different. What we do want is to keep that left hip bone on the ground, connected to the earth. So maybe bringing the hand to that left hip, just so it doesn't roll up. Whew, feeling that on the inner thigh. And this is a vulnerable pose. You know, lying on the back, got the legs open. Allow yourself to be in this. Hip openers can be very vulnerable. They can be very, very awesome. Feel really good. Continue to find your breath. We've got just a few more rounds of breath here. And as you feel ready, nice and slow, starting to raise that leg back up towards center. And then we're going to let that leg continue over towards the left. Now we want to keep the right hip bone, right sits bones connected to the earth. So if it helps, bring that right hand to the right hip or outer thigh. And you won't have to take the leg very far over towards the opposite side before you start to feel the sensation in the outside of the hip. So stay with that. Don't force anything. And you want a little softness in the knee, but you can have the knee bent as much as feels best for you. And we want to continue to flex those toes back so that we're activated through the leg. And just about 3 more rounds of breath here. Awesome, Mark. When you feel ready, just starting to raise that leg back up towards center. We'll release the strap, keeping that leg extended. And then when you're ready, nice and slow, we'll just start to lower the leg down, maybe even closing your eyes. Sometimes this can bring in the sensation that as you lower the leg nice and slow, that it actually goes past the floor. Kind of a fun little thing. I remember doing something similar to that when I was a little kid. Slowly bringing that leg all the way down to the ground. And then just pause here for a moment and observe. Just kind of notice the differences in the body, having worked one side and not the other. And then if it would feel good, reach the arms overhead. Take just a big good morning stretch, like you're waking up first thing in the morning. Lengthen out through the toes, out through the fingertips, maybe roll out through the ankles, roll out through the wrists. Again, at any time, feel free to let a sigh out of the mouth. And then we'll switch that over to the other side. So when you feel ready, starting to draw that left knee in towards the chest. And your choice, having that right leg extended, that's going to be a little more opening in the hip, maybe feel a little less stable. You could also plant that right foot on the ground with the knee bent, bringing in a little more stability and making it not so intense on the hips. Bringing the hands to the left knee and just using the hands to circle that knee around, working the top of the femur in the hip socket. Again, maybe I feel a little hip flexor massage when I do this one, so maybe you do as well. But also just getting that hip socket and some of those muscles ready to see some action. And when you're ready, locating your strap, placing it along, again, the ball of the foot, and extending that leg up. And I'm sorry, I should have mentioned on the other side, if you don't have, a strap, a scarf, a tie, a dish towel, anything like that, just use your hands interlaced behind, the thigh or just below the knee. If the flexibility is there, you could also, and you don't have the strap, you could use the hands higher up as well. But we want to keep the toes active, flexing back towards the face, lengthening up through that heel. Whew, feeling that hamstring. Shaking is totally natural, so embrace the shake. And if it would feel good here, again, maybe imagining a marker on your heel and you're just drawing little spirals on the ceiling. That would actually be kind of fun. Drawing on the ceiling with our feet. Maybe those circles start to become a little larger. Notice the tension in which you're holding the straps. Don't clench it, don't ball up the fists. Awesome. When you feel ready, we're going to start to open that left leg out towards the left. Toes are flexed back. And we want that right hip bone to stay connected to the earth, so not letting the right hip bone or the right cheek come up off the ground. Getting a nice stretch through the inner left thigh. And you can use the strap. If you don't have a strap, you could allow the leg to drop onto a prop. You could, bring the hand underneath for support. And we've got about 5 rounds of breath here. And when you feel ready, nice and slow, start to bring that leg back up towards center. Now this time keeping the left hip bone grounded. So if it helps, bring the left hand to the hip. We'll start to bring the left leg across the body over towards the right. And with that hip bone connected to the ground, the sits bone's connected, or I guess it's not fully the sits bones. Keeping, the low back on the ground just so you're not lifting shining a half moon. You don't have to go very far to get that stretch, that sensation. Ooh, that feels good. And so for me, I feel this in the outer hip, maybe even all the way down You feel maybe in the SI joint. So, I don't know, see what you feel. Feel what you feel. Be present to the sensations and know when to back off. Your body will tell you. Your body knows when it's about to get injured and sends a lot of responses through your nervous system. So pay attention. Our body will tell us if we're pushing it too hard. We want to find that edge and play with it, but not force, not cause any harm or injury. 3 more rounds of breath here. Awesome. As you feel ready, start to draw that leg back up towards center. Keeping the leg extended, release the strap. And then nice and slow, you can even close your eyes here if you'd like. Just lower the leg down, maybe for a count of 10, or just taking your time. Again, maybe feeling that, maybe an optical illusion, physical illusion of the leg going through the floor, maybe. Nice and slow. Let that leg settle towards the ground. And then once again, just pause, take a moment, feel, notice, observe. Awesome work. When you feel ready, let's draw or plant both feet on the ground. Then draw the knees in towards the chest. A little tuck through the tailbone. And we'll take a happy baby here. Another awkward pose, but really, really fun. So we'll flex the toes back, open up through the legs, and then with the toes flexed back, we'll start to draw the knees in towards the armpits as the feet go up towards the ceiling. Knees stay bent. You can grab on behind the knees anywhere up the legs or on the outsides of the feet. And here, just imagine a baby in its crib. You know, babies, they have no insecurities. We're not born with insecurities. Those are learned, those are taught. So imagine just that happiness, that pure joy of being a baby, of being a kid, of thinking that you're the coolest thing, the strongest. You know, you talk to my nephew, he is the best basketball player. He is pretty much pro at bike racing. You know, he has so much confidence in himself, and it's gonna be tragic when the world starts to take that away from him. So allow yourself to channel some of that childlike vulnerability. Awesome work. A few more rounds of breath. Lengthening out through the tailbone so that the low back is spread out across the mat. Ooh, that makes a difference. Beautiful work. When you're ready, release the feet down. Plant the feet. Just take some windshield wipers. So just letting the knees drop side to side. And we'll release for the low back, loosening up in the hips. All right. Now we're going to come back into seated. And we're going to do a little, mat is really crooked now. We're going to do some hips and shoulders. So I'm actually going to spread out this blanket so there's a little bit of contrast between my legs and my mat so that you guys can see what's going on here. So we are taking cow face pose, and then we're going to bring in a little shoulder stretch. So have your strap handy. So getting into cow face, we're going to start, I don't know if that even made much of a difference, but we're going to start with the legs extended, okay? And then we're going to bend the right knee. So again, I'm mirroring you. So that right knee comes in towards the chest, and maybe this is where you stay. If you're feeling some sensation here in the outside of that right hip, stay there. If you can, if the body allows it, you can cross that leg over, and that'll give you a little more sensation. This may be your position. If it's okay with the knees, if it feels accessible in the body, you could start to bend the other leg, that would be the left leg, drawing it in towards, kind of towards the glutes. And then from here, reestablishing the connection to the sits bones, working to stack the knees. I don't know if you guys can see, my knees are definitely not stacked. Maybe yours are, maybe you're far from. I have pretty tight hips, so those that have a little more looser hips may be able to get a little closer, but don't feel like you have to bring the knees in line. Now this is a really big stretch for both hips. So stay with this, breathe into it. And then with our strap, we are going to bring it into the right hand, and then we're going to extend the right arm up, bend the elbow behind the head, and then if you can kind of use the head to press back into the arm to find a little more opening there, and just so it isn't cranking your head forward. Then we're going to take the left arm, bend it back behind us towards the low back, and grabbing onto the other end of the strap. So showing you what it looks like from behind. So bringing it around, grabbing both straps. Now some people that have more open shoulders will probably be able to bring the fingers together. Not this girl. So that's why props are one of my all-time favorite things. So this is a very challenging position that we're in. A lot of sensation here. A lot going on in the hips, a lot going on in the shoulders. So listen to your body. If one is feeling like it's better than the other, then just work the shoulders or just work the hips. You don't necessarily have to do both, but you do have that option. Combining here. Oh wait, let's see, sorry. Legs are wrong, there we go. Whoo-wee. All right. How are we doing? Let's breathe into this. We're sitting up nice and tall. We really want those squared sits bones. Oh, and if it would feel good, you could start to bow forward, keeping the spine nice and straight. That's just going to bring in more sensation. So if you have enough sensation going on, don't worry about bending forward. Might feel a little heat rising in the body. Just continue to breathe. About 5 more rounds of breath. Awesome. When you feel ready, releasing the left hand first, the one at the low back, and then releasing the right hand, dropping the strap, maybe shaking out through the arms. And then we're just going to switch this out so you can uncross through the legs, but I want to show you just a fun transition this is fun to play with if you want. So it's from full cow face. So you would bring the hands, you kind of twist over towards the left, planting the hands, and then starting to lift the sits bones, planting both feet. You're going to kind of twist and into a wide leg forward fold, walking over towards the right, and then kind of bending, twisting, and you could end up back in your cow face pose on the opposite side. Hopefully you could see that. If that didn't make sense, if your brain's like, not going there, don't worry about it. Just uncross through the legs, and we will set it up like we did the first round. So with legs extended, drawing the left knee, forget I'm mirroring you, left knee in towards the chest. Again, this is where you could stay. You could cross that leg over. We're just looking to get the sensation in the outside of the left hip. Now, if you do want to take it to cow face, bending in that right knee, bringing that foot in towards the glutes, and then reestablishing your connection to your sits bones. That is the most important part of this. Doesn't matter, you could readjust. I could get my knees in line with lifting my booty up, but we want the sits bones connected, nice and squared. working to stack through the knees, and that's going to bring in the double hip sensation. And again, if you just want to work in the hips, stay here. Don't worry about the next part. If you do want to bring in the shoulder stretch on the other side, bringing your strap into the left hand, extending that up, and then bending that elbow behind the head. Right hand reaches towards the low back, bending that elbow and grabbing the other end of the strap. So again, this is what it could look like. Or again, if you've got more of that flexibility, maybe the fingers are a little closer to touching, maybe they do touch, maybe you can clasp. Awesome. Just remembering that every body is different, so don't force it. One of the reasons I became a yoga instructor is because I am not flexible. And guess what? I can still do yoga. Crazy, huh? I want to debunk that myth that you have to be flexible to do yoga. I have definitely gained flexibility through yoga, but a lot of it is just the way I'm built. The activities that I did during my formative years, when my body was developing, was a lot of forward motion, a lot of, forward athletic stuff. So my hips and shoulders are not very open, and that's okay. I can still do yoga, and so can you. So I always laugh at the excuse that I can't do yoga, I'm not that flexible. Because I always get to say, hey, me too. Lucky for us. A few more rounds of breath here. Again, if you want more sensation, I definitely don't, but if you're looking for the more sensation, you could bow the chest forward, keeping the spine nice and extended. Beautiful work. Again, shaking is natural. It may, you may be like, oh, this is a mellow practice, I shouldn't be shaking. That's not true. We're still working the body. We're still getting these deep, deep stretches. Still moving energy out and in of the body, moving stagnant energy around. Awesome work. When you feel ready, releasing the right hand, releasing the left. Setting your strap off to the side, uncrossing through the legs, shaking them out. Ooh, that feels good. Awesome work. All right, got time for one more pose before we get into our Shavasana. And since our theme is vulnerability, I would like to get us into what I view as one of the most vulnerable poses. Heart opener, supported heart opener with a hip opener. So you can do this flat on the ground without any props, absolutely. So basically we're lying down on the ground. We're going to tuck the shoulder blades underneath, opening up through the heart, and then bring the bottoms of the feet to touch, knees drop open in reclined cobbler's pose. Now for a supported version, and getting a little more opening in the chest, this is one reason for this pose alone is why I wanted a bolster. But you can take a bolster, you can roll up a second yoga mat, you can roll up a thicker blanket, couch cushion, anything that's good. Wow, I got the hiccups. Anything that's going to give you some support in the back. So we're going to do the same thing here. We're going to lie the spine back along it. And it's going to give us this extra lift in the back of the heart so that the shoulders can drop down and back even further than if you were just lying flat on the ground. So that is the purpose of bringing in a prop. It's not necessary, it's just going to give you more opening in the chest, okay? Now, if you are using a prop and this is enough, you don't have to bring in the hips. But if you would like to, again, we're going to come into cobbler's pose. So bringing the bottoms of the feet to touch, letting knees drop open. And here, this is where, you could bring in your blocks. Sliding a block or two underneath the knees. You could also slide, a cushion or rolled up blanket and the second bolster if you're that fancy and have a couple bolsters. to support the knees. If whatever prop you have isn't quite as long as the spine, bring in a pillow or something for the head. But really, we're just looking to get opening in the body. Open through the hips, open through the heart. Arms can spread out, they could be in goalposts. And since we are playing with vulnerability, I would like you to, feel into it. And if it is just discomfort, stepping out of your comfort zone, feeling vulnerable, if those are the sensations that are coming up, stay with it. Of course, if what is coming up for you is either going to cause injury to the body or going to maybe trigger something that is going to put you into a place that I wouldn't want to put you in because I'm not there to help talk you through it. So some of us have traumas that we may be dealing with. We might have stored traumas in the body, stored emotions in the body, and get that release. So I definitely want you to stay safe in your own body, physically and emotionally. But I also want you to challenge yourself to be vulnerable, to be uncomfortable, to be open, and just see what happens. But if you are needing a little more containment here, if this is just too much and you feel like it might trigger a bad emotional response, you could bring the hands to the belly, one hand to the heart, one hand to the belly. You can even cross the arms over, grabbing opposite biceps, elbows, or shoulders. You can wrap up in a blanket if that would feel good here. Just allow yourself to breathe, to open. Notice where you may be hanging on to any tension, maybe in the face, in the neck, the jaw, the tongue, around the eyes, the neck or the shoulders. Notice if you're holding up the hips, if you're clenching the butt cheeks, or just notice where you can release, where you can let go, where you can allow yourself to just be a little more vulnerable, to be a little more open. Continue to breathe. Continue to check in with the body. As we hold poses for an extended time, there can be a natural release, a natural opening that sometimes happens, or a settling. And that can sometimes move us deeper into the pose, which can be beneficial, but can also sometimes send us too deep to where it's an unhealthy level. And it does take some time to kind of working with the poses, working with your body to recognize when, it's like, oh, this hurts so good, to like, oh, this just hurts. So pay attention, use props. Props are your friend. Now you are welcome to stay here for your Shavasana or your final pose. If this is feeling awesome and you've got some more maybe exploration or just you want to continue to see what comes up for you in this, and feel free to stay in this for the duration of your practice. If there is a different position that you want to get into for Shavasana, feel free to take that. When you're ready to come out, it's a nice little offering, especially for the hips, especially when we've been holding it for this long, to bring the hands to the outsides of the thighs and use those to draw the knees together. And then just coming out of the pose in any way that feels right for you, maybe offering some support for the neck and head as you come up. And if there are any other movements or final stretches, anything to round out your practice to really help you settle into your final pose, feel free to explore that, to take as much time as you like, kind of wrapping up your practice. And then when you feel ready to take that final pose, to get into our final relaxation, again, you're welcome to stay in our reclined heart and hip opener, or you can take any other position that feels good for you. A traditional corpse pose is lying flat on the back, palms turned up, toes turned out. But that's not necessary. You don't have to take that one. You can lie on your side, on your back, on your belly. Excuse me. You can use props to support you in any way. You can wrap up in a blanket. You could do anything, really. The world is your oyster. Yogi's choice here. But the goal of this final pose, this Shavasana, or our final relaxation, is probably, it's one of the ultimates, I think, in vulnerability. The goal is to do nothing, to be. And that is really hard. It's not in our human nature to, well, I guess, can't say it's not in our human nature. It's not often supported in our society to do nothing, to just be. And this pose invites us to do that. And it starts to challenge us to surrender. And to be able to surrender, that is one of the ultimate acts of vulnerability. So whatever position you find yourself in, allow yourself to fully release to it. To drop any breath control you were working with, just letting the body find its natural flow. Allowing the body to just fully relax, fully release. And hopefully, allowing the mind to settle, to find peace. And this can be so challenging for us as humans. Not only to just be, but to be vulnerable. Because to be ourselves, to be our true, our authentic selves, to let the world see us as we are, that is the ultimate in vulnerability. But in order to do that, we need to know who we are. We need to know and love, or at least respect, all of the aspects of ourselves, the good and the bad, the light and the dark. So allow yourself to be vulnerable in this pose. By allowing yourself to just be. If you do have the time to dedicate to a longer Shavasana, a longer corpse pose, longer relaxation, please do. You've already carved out this time for yourself, so give yourself as much of that time as you can to continue to just be. And whenever you feel ready, starting to bring some movement back into the body, nice and gentle. Becoming aware of sensation. And if you're not already there, eventually rolling onto one side of the body. If you're lying down, taking a nurturing pose. And wherever you find yourself, just take a moment right now to say thank you. To thank yourself for carving out this time, for giving yourself the gift of this self-care, for allowing yourself to be vulnerable. And whenever you feel ready, I'll invite you to bring the hands to heart center or take any other meaningful gesture with the hands that feels right for you. I want to thank you so much for allowing me into your homes, for allowing me to share this beautiful gift of yoga, this magical practice. Thank you so, so much. I see you, I honor you, and I bow to you. Namaste.